Broadcast stopped, huh? Well, broadcast unstopped, I do hope. Welcome back again to Mish-Mash Monday Street Fighter V Battle Round for the 2MK team. Particularly Just Fine and myself, Kanzuki Dynasty, aka Rune Siren. I was in the middle of talking about things when the network blipped or something went wrong and stream stopped. So if you're just picking up now, you might want to also look at the archive prior to this one, which will be on our YouTube as well, when the time comes for all that. But, for the moment, onward. I was more so at the time discussing that I do tend to focus on hitting buttons, space control, controlling my opponent's options and motion, but that the way that I do it and the way that I've tended to start to focus on it and move through it, at least as I was learning and coming up through the game, and obviously still am, is in fact towards the more offensive bent rather than the equally possible defensive version of the same thing, just in terms of where my mindset focuses, even though obviously I do learn a bit of both through the process. And other than that, I've slightly lost my train of thought, so I'll continue shortly, I suppose.
That was a little frustrating, but not in a terrible way.
Lara wins.
Once I had outspeeded Divine Helix, they adapted to trying to slow things down, which did not actually work out that well for them. My own reactions just were not as on point as they needed to be.
It's go time. Let's do this.
They go with Laura against Dream Siren. I think the main thing that she's going to have to do is do the same thing that I was attempting to do, which is walk this particular player to the corner. It's not that they want to be in the corner, it feels like it, but it's more so that they have the desire to put you in a similar situation that the first player we saw on the broadcast before it terminated. They have a very explicit set of things that they are comfortable with relative to their defensive reactions and know how to get a decent amount of damage. But when it comes to actually laying in the offense, they are a little less practiced and therefore bring the match down to the scrambles they have a bit more practice with. And if anything, I would say this would be a bit more effective if they were playing on Honda, since Honda has a bit more buttons to move them forward in a little more safe ways, while Laura just has only a couple that are not necessarily safe, and to make them safe she has to have meter on her to threaten with the EX forward to get the mind games going just enough to get to do them.
I took this round.
Round 2. Fight.
Now, while she isn't necessarily a strong defensive player, Rune Siren has a lot of experience in this matchup that leads her to getting quite a bit of damage out when she catches Divine Helix on the off position. So I think we can all thank Omni Rabbit for that particular punish.
Fight.
In a game like Street Fighter 6, on the other hand, the main thing that I feel Kansuki Dynasty / Rune Siren is going to have problems with is the fact that the drive impact attack that closes the gap between the opponent and the player is going to provide quite a bit of volatility and require her to get a lot more initial grinding done on her defensive reactions.
Round 1. Fight.
But you can simulate this pretty well with characters like Laura or Birdie or anybody with a fairly good gap closer that is safe on block, but also still throwable. Laura's isn't as throwable, but there's still other ways to deal with it. Even Cammy herself with her V Skill 1 has something like this. We have a few training bots that help with this particular reaction set. I don't remember most of them off the top of my head, but I know that Cammy bot is one of them in particular, and I think you can also do this training on Kareen bot, although a little less intensively. So, while she will need to get those defensive reactions down for Street Fighter 6, like I was alluding to in the stream before the internet hiccup, you have two ways of dealing with a stressful situation that you end up failing or losing from, or just taking a lot of damage from. You can do as I alluded to and get your defensive reactions up to snuff, so that way you can lose less HP, we'll call it, or you can take the offensive player route and try to figure out ways to prevent the reaction from happening in the first place. Usually this involves a lot more spacing, and our offensive players on our team definitely tend to have a bit of an edge when it comes to offensive spacing and keeping the opponent from having too many options that they don't know how to deal with at any given time. You can see this in players like Brillian, who have quite a bit of training on their offense and are able to deal with spacings where the opponent has multiple options and she still is able to pick a button that may end up punishing whatever option they're getting at, or just plain evade it. looks like we have a full lounge here. Lolcat Bison. I see. Well, off they go. Goodbye, Lolcat. Hello, K-Lord. I don't know, all of these names are great. A Cammy named Spectral Dancer, I mean, come on.
Let's do this.
There are definitely players in the Street Fighter CFN community who have terrible names, but we tend to have a pretty good crop every now and then. And I, for one, count myself among those people. But, you know, I just like a good pun, okay? Or not even a pun, just like a good, like, thematic tie-in. It's like costumes, but for words. Alright, so we got a Dominican in his house. Let's see if we can get a little more practice on some offense here. They tend to have a lot more offensive players in that scene, of which I am very grateful for whenever I run across them. Connection's not always bad, but the netcode has definitely improved over the years, and it is definitely easier to fight them now.
Come on, let's turn up the heat. Round one.
And soon we will have the much celebrated rollback netcode come Street Fighter 6. Won't that be a joy? Better than whatever this is. Yeah, I'm sorry, my guy. This is not that great. Not terrible though, it's just think everybody has a very small teleport. We'll get through this.
Round two. Fight.
Oof! Put me on the wire here. Come on, you know you want to throw one. Thank you. Probably shouldn't have thrown there. And honestly, that got a little better once I adapted to the way it was lagging. It's consistent, so as long as lag is consistent, I can handle it. That was fairly excellent pressure from K-Lord here. So I'm getting what I was asking for. And I can't ask for more. Mostly because my mouth is full of Kin's foot, but
Round
so
one.
it goes.
Fight.
No, I really need to stop doing that. The reason why I need it to be consistent lag is actually due to the fact that I'm a defensive player. Now, obviously, it's easier for everyone when it's consistent, but in my case, part of the way I have trained my reactions is to do certain, not necessarily option selects, but you know, fuzzy guard, fuzzy throw tag kind of things, where you're sort of pressing block or throw in a rhythm, and if that is off at all, it can obviously end up in a crush counter for your opponent. I really need to stop dash throwing. Keyboard is definitely ready for it every time. Kinda hard to whiff punish in this, but not too bad. It's mostly on me. Yeah, I know you have, like, CA bar. I don't care. Come on. Oof. So tense, though. And the shimmy, and there we go. Well, that was still a pretty decent match in my opinion.
Ken wins.
Could have done a little bit without the lag, but I have a feeling the outcome would have basically been the same. K-Lord was very confident in the fact that they had my offense solved, and for the most part they were kind of correct. Not entirely, but I have a feeling they would have been able to deal with what I was throwing out. So, not feeling that bad about that at all. Hopefully Omni Rabbit has a bit of a better connection with K-Lord. Let's go.
One thing I sometimes notice about Just Fine's play is that you saw in my own matches with the lore just recently, I eat overheads. I eat overheads all the time, and Just Fine does not eat overheads nearly as often.
Nope. I don't even think about it.
She just automatically defends them almost all the time because that's the sort of person she is, the sort of player she is, and that's a very different foundation than what I started from myself, and I'm still technically struggling with. And that has probably allowed her slightly different mindsets and approaches, just in the sense that certain things are easier for her to do or learn because, for instance, she doesn't have to worry about people trying to overhead her because she's going to block even if she's not really thinking about it. Whereas I'm not going to block almost regardless of whether I'm thinking about it. And that's partly that I need to grind certain characters' overheads because I block some and not others. But another part of the reason that this happens is just a matter of what I am watching for being different than what she is watching for most of the time, I would think.
And in Street Fighter 6, you're gonna have to figure out the overheads as well, because some characters, I'm not sure if it's universal or not, but I definitely know I've seen at least Guile and I think Jury have a drive impact gap close into an overhead. Now, this is very throwable, mind you, but the fact that you're gonna have to deal with that at all is gonna definitely throw off some people and cause a bit of introspection.
Yeah, the gap close aspect of that is gonna be part of my problem because the way I defend in part is by preventing my opponents from getting into position for certain things, or those buttons being a good idea even if they did manage to advance, because I knew they were advancing. I'm ready to do something about it, to check them in some way, or give them something to think about of my own. But with a reliable gap closer into overhead sort of situation, that may or may not be as possible just because I have less control potentially over the spacing that they end up at after their gap closer. I don't know in great detail what exactly all of the options are in Street Fighter 6 or how that works. I have not been personally reviewing the Street Fighter 6 videos in super great depth as yet, but it's gonna make life a bit different for me based on even just what we've just described.
Being corrected by members of the audience that it is the drive rush I'm talking about, not the drive impact. Too many drives for me. I drive automatic, not stick, but you know, we'll get there. I didn't even have the beta.
I don't know. I don't have any idea how you intend to get those clutch moments if you're driving to drive automatic, so you might need to learn.
Well, I play the character with the biggest, stupidest buttons. That's the plan. Or a jury, and then I'll have to learn how to drive stick, but you know.
I have no idea if my pun landed, but onward.
No, it landed, don't worry.
Alright then.
Man, K-Lord is definitely a good player to get in on this whole beta, not beta, Street Fighter 6 like contemplation, because they definitely play offense from like halfway across the screen as any good shooter can. But this player in particular has quite a good sense of when to use Kin's B skill 1 to just close in, similar to the drive rush, and stick out the right button, or even just do nothing and just close the space and wait for you to have done something. This makes it a little more quiet for my taste, but it is definitely still offense. Look at this nonsense. Beautiful. Unfortunately for Gaylord, Omni Rabbit has a bit better defense in their pocket. Ooh, the juggle. Not every day you get to see that. Even I get hit with that overhead though. It's all about the mental stack of things, really. And honestly, I think Kimberly has something similar, Kai Kisuke has something similar, so I think Omni Rabbit is just gonna be just fine with Street Fighter 6. It is very clear what character they are looking forward to. We had some data leaks from the audio files that have confirmed to me that I may also be looking forward to JP. It sounded like they had like a command grab, some teleporting, some big buttons. Obviously we couldn't see any of these things, it was just the audio files of the commentator mode saying things about their buttons. But yeah. Definitely might be a possible secondary for me. Maybe it'll fit the same niches in Bryson. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be a whole new thing. Maybe it'll just be G incarnate and I won't be able to play them at all. Who knows? But I will definitely be picking up Jury for sure. The more I looked at the beta footage, I'm pretty confident that her normals in this game, while not optimal for what I'd like, do what the job that I need to get done, and her specials are starting to look more and more like something that I can gel with. I would have played her a bit more seriously in Street Fighter V if it weren't for the fact that Armika just suits me a bit more. And also, the combo execution time relative to stuff is a bit much. This will still definitely be the case in Street Fighter 6, I can already tell. All of the crazy custom combos on her super feng shui engine are things that I learned in 4, but not necessarily to the extent that 6 will have them. 5 had them as well, but I was not necessarily too enthralled with the way they changed her normals during V-trigger activation. So maybe I'll have a little bit more luck this time. It's just all these little tiny things, really. Also, I get my dive kick back. I kinda missed that. So let's see here. Siren has been doing a pretty good job stressing Omni Rabbit out in neutral. But Omni Rabbit has too much meter on his hands. What a whiff punish.
You lose.
EXDP would have worked better. But not while you're in V-trigger.
Round 1. Fight! Round 2. Fight!
We're seeing a lot of Rune Siren doing quite a bit of good, like, little hits here and there, getting a sizable lead advantage, and then Omni Rabbit just barely getting the lead on her rhythm, leading to even more damage because Laura just has a good explosive amount of damage when she catches you off rhythm. So if I were to suggest anything, knowing that Rune Siren is the offensive player, I would probably tell her to try and change up her rhythm rather than trying to figure out what the right button is to hit in the spacings she puts herself in. And also to possibly be a little braver and stand closer to Omni Rabbit, not because this is necessarily a sane idea, after all Laura has a fairly good command grab, but more so to actually force Omni Rabbit to push buttons that put her at more specific spacings on block, and to maybe even trigger that whiffed command grab for a little bit more damage. All in all, just to help freshen up her rhythm a bit more.
Yeah, rhythm is my arch nemesis in fighting games in general. I have a very consistent and predictable rhythm. I hit buttons at a certain interval, and once an opponent gets used to me, it's definitely a problem unless their own rhythm just happens to lose to it because of either their character, their style, and their own lack of ability to register and adapt the same way. Rhythm is a big deal, honestly, as just a general thing in fighting games and in Street Fighter as well.
But it will even tie into that offensive versus defensive concept in learning that we were talking about earlier. Because as I mentioned, when I was fighting the Dominican Ken K-Lord earlier, I was very focused on when I needed to mash, quote unquote, my throw while blocking, just in case they went for the throw tech instead. And learning those little tricks to rhythm in a matchup is definitely a choice, because if I spent all that time when I could have, for example, learning the right set of buttons to whiff in neutral versus that Ken, to get them to stick out a button I wanted them to stick out and whiff punish. That would be more so the sort of thing that Rune Siren would need to focus on and likes focusing on.
Fight!
So close. Getting the killing blow on Omni Rabbit is always the toughest part. Whew. There we go.
Round 2. Fight!
I don't even know how they managed to get that. Ah, no, I fell for it. So predictable. Take that throw. No, kind of take that throw, and that was my bad.
Final round. Fight!
In any case, this will probably be our last on-stream set of the night. It is just about time for us to wrap up by our usual timings. The lounge may remain open, although the host will potentially change. So if you do want to drop in or get a few matches in and haven't quite been able to join us at the beginning, you can probably still find us by looking for any of the people who are currently in the lounge. Otherwise, we do play various games on different nights of the week, and you can find out what our plans on any given night are by looking at our Twitter @2_MK_FGC at around 7:30 US Eastern Time. while we do have relatively set concepts of what games are played on which days of the week, at least on stream, although it varies at other times of day, we do not always have every stream every day. So you should check our Twitter at around that timing, or at around, I believe it is 6:30 p.m. Central European Time for a potential EU timeframe stream, depending on who's available at that time. You can also find the training mode bots that Just Fine mentioned a bit earlier in our stream on our website, 2-mk.org, along with a way to contact us if you had any questions, thoughts, or whatever the case may be. So we will let this finish up, get any final thoughts from Just Fine on the matter, and close out either after this set or after or during the next one.
Round 2. Fight!
Well, I can work on my predictability a little bit. Alas, good games, everyone. I don't have too much more to say. That goes about as intensely as it usually is between me and Ami. Two defensive players standing on the battlefield with fully awakened. Now, I think that's all for me, so goodbye everybody!
Let's do this!